Hey guys, welcome back to Learn Music Theory with Nath. Today's episode, a bit of a different one. I have a new microphone. Thought I'd do a video on a tier list in terms of music theory concepts. So, when you're looking at music theory online, you may just be completely overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that's out there and you think, how am I going to get through all of this? All right. So what I thought I would do is do a tier list, and I'm going to put the different music theory concepts and I'm going to rank them and put them in order of ones that you must know all the way down to things that you really don't need to know. All right, let's put some into the must know category. Okay, so these are the music theory concepts that you must know and you must learn because it will help you in your everyday playing. Your composition, it will help if you're playing in bands, it will help if you're just playing at home, okay? So, goes without saying, note names, okay? You need to know the note names. Just like the alphabet we have in English, there's the musical alphabet too, okay? So we need to know the note names and you need to know where those notes are on your respective instrument. So that goes in the must know category. At the same time, I will put triads in the must know category, okay? So every chord in music, even the most far out jazz chords, okay, that have 6 notes or even more in them, they're all based off of triads. They have triads in their foundation, okay, so triads are in the must know category. Any kind of basis of improvisation is based off of triads, okay. There's the triad approach, there's the arpeggio approach, and there's also the scale approach, okay. So triads are in the must know category. At the same time, I will put 7th chords up there. So you got the triads, and then you have, of course, their extensions, which make 7th chords. All right, I'm going to add in also intervals. Okay, intervals are must know. You must know your intervals. Okay, scales, melodies, chords, they're all made up of intervals. Okay, let's have a look at what else we have here on the list. Okay, so I'm going to put ear training up here. Okay, it's probably the most important skill to have as a musician, okay? It's the ability to hear things, to be able to identify things just by listening, whether that's chord progressions, whether that's a motif, and then being able to play that on your instrument, all sorts of things. Ear training is definitely in the must know. There's all sorts of different methods. If you would like me to cover some ear training methods on this channel, let me know, and I can make some videos for you to help you with your ear training, but that definitely goes in the must know category. I will put note values also in the must know category. Okay, so this is the idea of knowing, for example, how long a crotchet lasts for, or a quarter note if you're in America and Canada. Clefs, they're in the must know. So clefs, note names, it all gets into the idea of kind of reading music. Because at the end of the day, reading music is just instructions. That's it. Okay, so let's have a look now at let's look at the don't bother. Let's look at let's eliminate a few of them from the board here. Let's put the ones in that you really don't need to know. Or I can tell you very, very quickly, and then you don't have to learn them. I would put microtonality in there. All right, unless your job is to transcribe King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard tunes, you're 99.99% of the time not going to encounter microtones. Okay, it's the idea of a note in between a semitone, for example. So a quarter note, a quarter pitch, I should say. Very, very rare. Okay, King Gizzard used them, and other bands do as well, but it's not something that you need to stress yourself out over. I'd put temperaments in there as well. That's the idea of kind of equal temperament tuning and things like that. Again, it's quite an advanced topic, unless you're into kind of serialism or sort of 12-tone music, or if you're into music that's not in 4/40, I wouldn't worry about it. The only other one I'd probably put there is harmonic series. And again, that's the idea of the kind of physics of music. So you have a fundamental, or the note, let's say it's a C. Okay, so you've got a C, and then the harmonic series is this idea of an order of the overtones that pitch produces. So you've got the fundamental, then the octave, etc., etc. You don't really need to go into too much detail with that one. That's not going to really help as much as other things will on the list in your everyday playing. So we're kind of coming at this from someone who doesn't know music theory and wants to know, where do I start? Yeah. Okay, so let's look at some of the other things. I'll put major scales up there. I'll put major scales up in the must know, purely because every mode, every other scale, arpeggios, all things are related back to the major scale. So you need to know the major scale, how to produce it on your instrument. What's the scale made up of? Notes. Okay, when you put notes together, they have certain distances between them. There's your intervals. Okay, so if you know your intervals, your note names to a degree, but the note values as well, you can come up with your major scales. Once you know your major scales, then you're on easy street, because everything is related back to the major scale. Okay, let's look at some other categories now of things that maybe are not must know, but are very helpful. So I'd put pentatonic scales up there. You know, if you're a rock player or a blues player, pentatonic scales, you could argue that they're in the must know, purely because they're a very common, approachable, functional tool that you have in your arsenal to solo with. Okay, 5-note scale, the notes all fit over the blues, rock chords, any kind of power chord, you can use a pentatonic scale. So if you're a guitar player, you'd probably argue that they're in the must know, but I'd put them up here in general. We're kind of looking at this from a broad range, and depending on what instrument you play, you can then move up or down. So we're looking at this as a broad topic. So time signatures, definitely. I'd actually put rhythm interpretation, not so much solfeggio or solfege, but rhythm interpretation definitely in the must know. It kind of goes along with note values. Okay, so I've added that one up there. That's probably the must know. Upper chord extensions. I'd probably put them here. If you are wanting to play jazz, they go higher. Upper chord extensions are simply the notes of a chord above an octave. Okay, so you have each note of a scale has a scale degree, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, if it's the major scale. And then we build chords off of that. 1, 3, 5, and 7 is a major 7. When you have upper chord extensions, you're using the 9th, the 11, the sharp 11, and the 13, which is actually the 2nd, 4th, and the 6th note of a major scale, but up an octave. So that's the way to look at it. If you're anything into jazz and improvisation, 100% it's got to be up here, but for others, you can put them in here. Good to know, good for your understanding. Exotic scales or altered scales, I'd put them down there. Transposition, I would put up here. The reason why I put that up here, it's a very valuable skill. Very, very, very valuable skill. It's going to be different depending on the instrument you play. If you're like myself, a guitar player and bass player primarily, we have it pretty easy. We just move up and down a fret. Done. Job done. Piano, probably a little bit more complicated when it comes to chords. You've got to change sort of chord finger patterns and things like that. But transposition is the idea of changing key. Okay, so that's definitely something you'll do as a working player. Several times, I've been on a gig and the singer says, I can't sing it in this key. It's a bit too high for my voice. And the band goes, okay, let's move it down a key. Let's transpose it down a key. So that's a very, very valuable, workable skill. Tritone substitution. I would put it here. If you have no interest whatsoever in jazz, I wouldn't worry about that so much. The idea of a tritone substitution is a dominant 7th chord, which is a tritone away. Okay, it's a way of extending the resolution of a harmony. Okay, so you have a 5 chord, and then you have another chord in between it, which is a tritone sub, and it's not really something you need to worry about too much unless you want to get into sort of advanced improvisation and things like that. It's very common in jazz, but again, eagle eye, broad view, don't really need to know it that much. Polyrhythms, I'd probably put in the same category. It's the idea of 2 rhythms playing at once or multiple rhythms playing at once. Cadences and functional harmony. I'd almost make this as a late play, into the must know. Not so much the names of the cadences, that doesn't really matter. It's more so you understand the idea of the 5 chord going to the 1. Not that it's a perfect cadence, but it's a 5-1. Functional harmony, definitely. Tuplets, put them in there. It's kind of notes within notes. Articulation, I'd put that up here. It's probably articulation and dynamics. Probably the idea, not so much that you need to know about them, but you need to be able to apply them. So articulation is how you play a certain note. Is it staccato? Bup, 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 bup. Is it legato? Ooh, da, 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 da. Dynamics, again, how loud, soft things are, and the balance between the two. Roman numerals, I'll put them there. If you can count to 13, again, you probably really don't need that unless you're writing things out and analysing. But again, for the everyday player, not really. Key signatures, they are good to know and then sort of forget about them, because all key signatures are a shortcut, basically, to understanding what notes are in what keys. So as soon as you know that A has 3 sharps and you see 3 sharp key signature, A, done. Forget about it. You don't really need to know it, because all that's doing is just guiding you to the key that you're in. So then you've got to go to your instrument and find it and go, oh, I'm in the key of A. And of course, like this video, it's quite broad, but depending on your instrument, depending on your instrument, of course, you're going to be able to then move and locate those key signatures. Inversions. I'd probably put them here. The idea of an inversion is simply when you have like a triad, we have it in root position, so root, 3rd, and 5th. An inversion is just changing the order. Okay, it's just changing the order from 1-3-5 to 3-5-1 or 5-3-1. That's all it is. More of a practical application, more than so much a theory. thing. Okay, so that's why I've cut them down a little bit lower. You can certainly get away with playing triads in root position, but that's just another tool that you can use. Modes, I'd put them down here. Look, modes are an alteration of a major scale. Simple as that. If you know your major scales, change one note, you've got a mode. Change another note, you've got another mode. Are you going to be a good musician and have a basic understanding of modes? Yeah. Modes is certainly not something that stops you, if you don't know much about them, from being a great musician. I know that's probably quite controversial, but there it is. I don't see them as important as other tools, especially up here. And minor scales, I'd probably put them here as well. Depending on the style that you play, we'll put them here because they're, it's important to know your scales because they're a tool that you can use with your improvisation. Minor scales, so you've got natural minor, harmonic minor, and your two melodic minors. You've got sort of the classical melodic minor and then the jazz melodic minor. And then you've got the modes within the minor scales, which there's really only two that are used. So that's pretty much where I'd put everything. Let me know in the comment box what you think. If I've got anything drastically wrong, let me know. If you'd like me to do another tier video, I certainly will. If you'd like me to expand on anything you see there on the list as well, let me know. Cheers, guys.